Let's get started with a seated warm-up, total body, for our beginning of our fully comprehensive routine. I would expect that you follow this up with a resistance training circuit and a full stretch to get your total body workout in on your workout days, or you could certainly use this as a short video to accumulate on your days off as a means of active recovery and reducing soreness or just getting the blood flowing and getting your body moving from the seated position. We're going to begin from our seated posture. Seated posture is going to look very similar to our standing posture, especially from the hips up. But from the hips down, we start with our heels under our knees, toes pointed forward. Second toe, shin, kneecap, and thigh bone all pointed in the same direction out in front of us here. We're going to sit up big and tall. So I like to scoot to the edge of the chair here so that I'm not slouching back, sitting up big and tall. We now have our regular posture from the pelvic tilt being neutral, engaged through our lower belly, sternum being forward, shoulders come down and back. You can expose the palms forward to tighten up the rotator cuff a little bit more. Tuck the chin in and elongate through the spine as if there were a string attached to a helium balloon, and that string ran all the way down your vertebrae, lifting you up nice and tall. This is the position I want you to maintain for the majority of our warm-up here. Obviously, when that middle back starts burning and talking to you, you can wiggle out of it at your own pace. Remember, these dynamic motions and these stretches and these activation exercises, take them at your own range of motion at the capability level that you can achieve without causing any pain or discomfort. So we're here, we're in our nice engaged position. We're going to start with our head tilt and lateral flexion, going side to side and just getting a slow start to things. You're always going to be pretty mindful not to overdo your neck, especially in lateral flexion, which seems to be one of the most important ones to work on through the years. It's probably one of the main reductions in range of motion or capability that I see in our older population. This range of motion, if yours doesn't look like mine, that's totally fine. Start where you can feel the stretch through the side of the neck to the base of the shoulder and up here behind the ear, maybe through the different areas of the side of the neck. You're going to do these exercises. We're going to go tuck, chin to collarbone, and then tilt, head back, keep your mouth closed. We're going to do these exercises about 3 to 4 times each. We're going to take a nice pause in the stretch. So tuck, chin to collarbone. The reason I say collarbone is because I don't want it down here to your sternum. I want it really tight and in toward that top of your collarbone to sternum connection. And then as you tilt back, keep your mouth closed. Feel the stretch in the front of your neck. One more to each direction. Down, tuck it in real tight so we get this stretch at the base of your skull, top of your neck. And up, and this time I want you to purse your lips up toward the ceiling and blow it a little kiss. Getting those lip muscles involved will get your whole neck a little bit better stretched out. Now we're going to go to rotation. Rotation, looking over one shoulder and the other. Side to side. Nice and easy. We are starting things super slow. Believe me, it'll pick up here in a moment. Always be respectful with the neck though as you get going. We're moving on. Let's go to our fingertips and toes. I just want to wiggle all 20 fingers to toes, get all the digits moving and connected, and maybe a little bit of a haphazard type of pattern, really not thinking about much smooth coordination other than really fine-tuning extension and curling or flexion of those fingers and toes too. Spread the toes out, squeeze them together. Let's do this as a grouping here. So all the toes and all the fingers squeeze, all the toes, all the fingers extend. Keep it going. You should, if you're putting good effort into this, you should really start to feel your forearms. You should feel your feet working in patterns that they're not used to. Down and up, in and out. Good. Shake that loose. Let's move into our shoulder motions here, starting very simply with a shoulder shrug and an active shoulder press. Hopefully you're still in your still maintaining your postural seat, controlling the core by squeezing and activating through the belly. Squeeze down and squeeze up. We're holding that for maybe a 2 count, 1 1000, 2 1000, squeeze, 1 1000, 2 1000. When I say squeeze, coming up is obvious. It's pretty easy. Going down takes a little bit more mindfulness. You got to think about the chest, think about the back of the armpit, front of the armpit. That's your latissimus in your chest that do depression of the shoulder. Let's bring it up, around, back, and down. Big shoulder circles here. When we're doing our shoulder circles, we get the whole complex involved. That's the collarbone, scapula, collarbone, shoulder blade, and upper arm bone. Be your clavicle, your scapula, and your humerus bone in nerdy anatomy terms. Let's keep going with these until we start to feel our activation of the soft tissue. We're trying to get that muscle that has all those knots in it and those muscles, those fibers engaged here. Let's take it around the other direction. So we are trying to elicit a small feeling of fatigue, neural activation as we go. And you should be feeling that because I'm feeling it. You got to really put mindfulness into 360 degrees of this motion. Really making those circles controlled and working toward activating those tissues. Don't just go through the motions. Next, we're going to move into our internal and external rotation of the shoulder. So we're going to keep our elbows tucked in nice and tight, right next to the rib cage. We're going to move our hands apart, the back of the hand pushing toward the back side of our body. May not get there, that's fine. And then the palms coming together to squeeze. When you squeeze, you're going to keep your elbows in, tucked into your ribs. And then when you squeeze in the upper back or open those hands through the posterior shoulder here at the back of the armpit, you're squeezing there as well. Squeeze for 3, 2, 1. Squeeze for 3, 2, 1. This whole time we're controlling our breath and just letting our body breathe naturally. As we continue to activate these tissues and warm things up, you'll notice that your respiratory rate picks up a little bit. This time I want you to rotate palms up, squeeze back, thumbs pushed behind you as much as you can. You can see from me, I'm not getting it all the way behind me either. Push together. This one's kind of a funky one. You may not feel this right away. You're definitely going to feel the push together, but the squeeze apart, this is an interesting isolation of rotation that we don't use very often throughout our days. Shake that loose. Should be starting to feel some activation around this shoulder joint, the shoulder complex. Let's go into a little bit more upper arm and shoulder motion. We're going to alternate an overhead reach with one arm reaching up above you, trying to maintain a good elbow angle, so don't let that elbow bend too much. Keep it fully extended or just softly bent. Same thing on the opposite hand, you're reaching back behind you. So reach and squeeze. Reach and squeeze. Both sides are working. One to reach behind us, one to reach above us. You saw I had to make an adjustment to my seat here. That's going to be something that you have to do depending on your chair. You want to be able to try to keep those arms close to your midline, close to your rib cage in this motion. This is what we call the sagittal plane. We want those arms coming straight down, straight up. Trying not to wiggle and move that shoulder around unless it's causing you pain. If this causes you pain, you want to reduce your overall range of motion. Don't reach so far above head. So yours might not look quite like mine. You may be able to achieve better range of motion. More or less, it doesn't matter. You're just putting as much squeeze and activation into good postural position as you can. What we don't want to see in this is that the rib cage puffs out and your back arches to get your arm overhead, or that your shoulder blade jams into your ear and that you're compensating through that shoulder complex. Keep those shoulders pretty well neutral across the horizon. We'll do one last one. I know your shoulders are warming up now. I think I've talked enough to get you going. Get those muscles talking back to you now. Let's go into our feet. A little bit of footwork here from the seated position. This will be very low impact, but it will start to develop impact at an even lesser load than body weight. So if you're going through this because you've been instructed to stay off of your feet, this is going to be like a very introductory exercise to begin to get you back into weight-bearing exercise. We're going to go with footwork patterns. That was a 1, 2, 3, 4. Very simple. We'll lead with the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or forward, forward, back, back. Sit up nice and tall. Draw your core in. Just little steps here. You can bring your hands to wherever you'd like. Let's do about 10 seconds, just getting used to those little steps. And then I'll get your full body going a little bit more. You can bring our hands up. We'll continue with that left leg lead. Those hands up. And let's pause, shake things out. Wiggle that middle back. Remember how I told you, if that seated posture is starting to add up over time, which it should, and especially around the spine, take some seconds to move around, loosen things up, and then pop right back into it, always being aware of that core. I say that because I'm the type that'll just sit up tall with my belly all soft. So I gotta pull it in myself. Let's go right foot lead, forward, forward, back, back, forward, forward, back, back. Just bringing those hands up to activate the leverage through that long arm, activating the tissue through the shoulder, the upper arm, the base of the neck, all through the shoulder complex here. Gets our heart rate going just a little bit more. Okay, that one was simple. Forward, forward, back, back. Now we're going to go out, out, in, out, out, in. Same thing, left leg lead, then right leg lead. We're going to make this one a little more interesting now. Ready? Here we go. Sit up tall, draw the core in, out, out, in. This one already has a bigger component of core stability. You should feel that your body's having to work to maintain its upright position, especially through that upper body. If I wasn't working so hard, I'd be waddling. If you notice that you're waddling here, slow that down and sit up nice and tall. It's more work there. Let's switch to the right leg lead. We're going to work on establishing that good core base, that good core strength, and the connection of your toes to your nose. Everything's connected here. So when you're going into this side step motion or movement pattern, you're going to feel it through your core more. Let's do about 3, 2, and 1. Rest. Told you I was going to make it more interesting, so we're going to do that one more time. I'm going to put a little brain tease in here. I want you to bring the hands up to the sides and create some circles. Small little circles, and then your footwork pattern. Out, out, in, out, out, in. Oh boy. It doesn't take a lot for the brain to start to get distracted with what it's doing when you split up those upper body and lower body peripheral nervous system commands. Good job. That was a tease. It's a bit like rubbing your belly and patting your head. I didn't know I could do that so well. Oh, I tried to pat my belly that time. Here we go. Out, out, in. Let's bring our palms up and take our circles the other way. Still same lateral movement patterns. Out, out, in. This positioning of your palms and your shoulders should feel significantly different. It challenges a lot of the tighter muscles and fibers of those muscles that are dominant in the front of our shoulder. We're going to do about 5 seconds more, so it should create a little bit more of a burn or a squeeze through that upper back, as well as the stretch coming through that underarm. Good. Shake things loose. Total body's starting to warm up. We're doing good. Let's move into a bit of a rotational exercise. And we'll start with a bit of a wider base with this one. So I want you to open up into that out position that you were just using. Toes rotate out. When the toes rotate out, so does the shin, knee, thigh, hip angle. So everything's in a nice linear angle here, pointed out away from the midline slightly. We're going to grab a hold of an imaginary ball or box out in front of us, but when we do so, we're not going to cave our posture. Not only through the back do we want to avoid rounding, but we also don't want to reach so far forward that we're rounding those shoulder blades around, because I can maintain my back good, but lose poor shoulder posture. So I'm going to bring it in nice and soft through the elbows so that the shoulder blades can maintain their positioning here. We're going to move that box in an infinity sign, or in a figure 8 along the horizon. Just with a light rotation of the torso. And we're going to think of this one a little bit more fluid, smooth, and coordinated. Control that flow of the box. You can begin to swivel a little bit more, and if your lower back is healthy, you can even sway side to side, really connecting the movement of your hands through the arms, shoulders, rib cage, spine, to the hips, and even you can feel that you're shifting your weight through those feet a little bit. Goes all the way to the ground, and you can rest because those shoulders start talking to us. I feel it myself. We're going to do just a couple more here, finishing things up for this seated warm-up. I'm going to take the high neighbor position. You can either use that lower hand on your hip. When I'm in the seated position, I like to do this with my hand toward the ground. So I'm waving at the neighbor here, and we're going to start by reaching that arm straight to the sky. This time I'm going to maintain my palm forward, but it's okay if it creates a pinch. You may be able to move your palm a little bit, rotate the palm in, and it may alleviate some of that pinching in your shoulder. As I get more comfortable with this, I'm going to introduce a lateral bend in the opposite direction with that overhead reach. Oh, and then we start really connecting the underarm to the shoulder blade to the rib cage down to the hip bone, and getting that soft tissue nice and stretched out. You can take this at your own pace. I've been moving a little bit quicker here on this one. Oh, the last one, I'm going to hold it there. I'm maintaining good contraction of my core so that I stay active in these tissues through my spine, so that I'm actively stretching, not just bending over and letting it do its own stretch. I want to guide that stretch. Same thing other side, waving at the other neighbor. And we start low and slow. I tried to get into that lateral bend a little too quickly there myself, so I'm going to back it up a little bit. My first goal is to get that underarm fired up or loosened up by getting a good overhead reach, proper mechanics, without jamming that arm into my ear like I said before. We want to keep that shoulder blade somewhat down and back as we start this, and we want to get the elbow fully extended to what we can. Then we'll start to introduce that lateral bend. We'll do a few more. You may feel this side to side is quite different. That's usually common. All of us have a dominant hand. We actually have a dominant side for both upper and lower body, and that'll create hyperactive muscles. Groaning is totally accepted, especially through a warm-up as you're getting things started, and a cool down when you're finishing them up. Last couple seconds here. 3, 2, 1. Good. If nothing else, this should go to prove that these basic exercises are good for everyone. I'm getting a good warm-up myself here.